Welcome to the Band Director Bootcamp podcast, the go-to place for busy band directors who want practical to build programs while maintaining balance in their lives. This podcast is brought to you by the Empowered Music Educator Academy, where we help directors like you find efficiency, sustainability, and impact in your teaching and leadership. And speaking of impact, our platinum sponsor, Kennelly Keys Music, has been serving musicians with a commitment to quality, reliability, and exceptional service. Whether you need top-tier instruments, expert repairs, or trusted advice, they've got you covered. Now, let's dive in and set the tempo for success.
Welcome to another episode of Band Director Bootcamp, the podcast with productivity and wellness tips for busy band directors. I'm your host, Lesley Moffat, and I'm really grateful to be sharing this platform with you. We know you don't have time to watch lengthy professional development webinars, so we bring you 20-minute tidbits with takeaways you can use to support you in this awesome career. This podcast is brought to you by the Empowered Music Educator Academy, where we help band directors like you find efficiency, sustainability, and impact in your teaching and leadership. And also by our platinum sponsor, Kennelly Keys Music, who's been serving music education since 1960. And so all you out here listening today, you're going to want to stay tuned if you've ever faced unexpected hardships and had to work through situations that felt really impossible to overcome, because you're not alone. And if you've been teaching since the pandemic, you've probably dealt with lots of those things. And so we probably all have something we can learn from today's episode, because our guest today is going to talk about how you dive into persevering through really unexpected hardships and the life-changing value of authentic mentorship. She's going to talk about some powerful stories that she's about overcoming disaster and loss and burnout, and about staying connected to a support system to help sustain the teaching career. And I brought on board today Lindsey Williams. She's been a band director for 18 years in New York. And she also is an author with a book coming out on July 22nd called Where the Valley Widens. And it's a feel-good and uplifting journey about her that kind of goes through her first group of students. She started with pre-K as her first year of teaching. So she was new at it, they were new at it, and she took them all the way through high school graduation. And she learned a lot through that process. And they were the class of 2021, which means that big finale that she and they had probably dreamed about didn't turn out quite as one might have expected. And so she had to deal with that and lost through Tropical Storm Sandy. And through this whole process, really discovered a lot of things that transcend teaching and really touched on a whole lot of things. And so she put it together in a book, and I was super excited when I was reached out to about this by her publicist, because I know that we all need feel-good stories. As I record this, I still have one more day of school left, and this summer I need some recharging, and her book is full of like 40 stories, 40 chapters that can be read. And I'm going to let her talk more about it, but it's the perfect time to have a book like this come out. So let's bring Lindsey. I want to bring you forward and first of all say thank you for being part of this today.
Oh, thank you so much, Lesley. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah. So a new book is super exciting. And before we go into too much about it, anything else, just give us a little bit more about your background and what led you to write down all of these things and compile this book and make it happen.
Well, I think like a lot of folks, I started this project when we were all quarantined and we couldn't be on stage with our students doing what we love doing, which is making music in person. And like you said, I had this group for my whole career, and our grand finale was definitely disappointing for me to come to terms with. So instead of writing about what was happening at the time, I just started writing about my time with them at the beginning at our elementary school, kind of when our whole school ecosystem felt really healthy and vibrant before things like the pandemic had totally, turned it upside down and on its head. And also the same group, like you said, had been through this flood that destroyed our elementary school, and where we had lost all of our instruments and all of our music and all the history that had been there before me, that past band directors had left, markings on the score and, names on old cases, all that had been washed away. And, we learned how to recover and repair things together, me and this group of students. And I thought to myself, during COVID, I was like, well, what does the teaching profession need? And I thought, well, I'm not sure that it needs one more dissertation right now, but that it needs a little bit of encouragement when things get tough, like, hey, I've been there too. And a mentor teacher had been there for me during the flood and also during the pandemic. And sadly, he passed away in 2022. And I just really felt compelled to write down all the wonderful things that he taught me. And just in case somebody's out there who doesn't have a teacher like I did, to keep them going when the going gets tough.
So diving into, I want to talk about this because you and I were talking beforehand, and I thought this was kind of interesting. We talked about the box. You said your mentor. I love this story about the box and what that was, and then how the book became the box almost. Tell us about this so that people understand why this book is an important read.
Sure. So when I first started teaching, I had that interview with the superintendent, and that man at the time said to me, you're gonna need to be organized. You're gonna need dress up. You're gonna need to make sure you're here on time. 6 days are for when you're sick. Get here, kid. And then he kind of softened a little bit because I was like, yeah, I want the job. That's why I applied for it. 23-year-old me. And he said, well, you're going to need something else. You're going to need a box. Actually, it can be a file folder or any old thing, but you're going to need to put every positive thing that a student or a parent or another teacher or a staff member does or says to you in that box. And on the day you don't feel like being a teacher anymore, you're going to need to open that box and read each one. And I actually didn't open that box until this year because I was afraid that opening it would be some admission that I didn't want to do this anymore. And I actually opened that box with a brand new teacher in my district who I was now mentoring now that my mentor was gone. And it was a really beautiful thing to open it with her and see what all these students had meant to me and share with her all the reasons that even though teaching is difficult daily, it's really worth it in the end.
Yeah. Now you said you lost the box.
So I lost the first one. The first one was just a file folder that I had kept in my bottom right-hand drawer. Like he said, it doesn't have to be fancy. So I didn't have time as a new teacher to go out and get a fancy box or anything. But I had this file folder and all the little cards and things that the little ones give you. And they're so cute, rainbows and music and flutes and I love band with, letters backwards. All those things are gone. Just like all the other teachers in my school lost those things during the flood. And actually, if you read the book, I do get one of them back kind of accidentally that, you'll have to see. So I do have one little card that's from that time that a student had at home. And it found its way back to me. But then later on, I did end up making a box during COVID when I had that extra time. I finally got myself to an antique store and found an old silverware box. And I kind of took out the insides and made it nice with my mother, who's a seamstress and good at making old things new again. And and so then I filled it with all the things that I had been keeping more informally in little files and things here and there. And now I have more than one box.
Wow. You talk about mentors. I noticed that's a big thing. And you faced some pretty tough times when, I'm sure, with that flood and all, and you said that the mentor was good. And then you alluded now just to another person. Are you giving back? Are you mentoring others now? Do you
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. So now that my mentor has, first he retired and then he passed away. Now I'm, found myself in just one moment, it seems like, moving from being the young teacher to being the teacher that, quote unquote, knows what they're doing.
It's the gray hair. We start to get the gray hair. See?
Oh, yes. I call it visible wisdom.
Oh, my God. That's what I'm changing the name of mine to. Visible wisdom. Wow. That's genius. I am so smart. It's solid gray.
Mm-hmm. You are. Lucky to have it all. And
we earn those, don't we? And then, yeah, it seems like passing that on. I mean, I feel you. That's why I wrote my books. That's why I do this podcast. I believe that the power of music education is amazing. But if we don't support the music educators and what you're doing, you're bringing hope through your book. Reminders when it's really hard of why we're doing this. And we all heard that stupid, remember your whys. We don't want to sit through those trainings and the like, but you were remembering your whys through the human touch and stuff. That's so important.
Right. Yeah. And my book, because I did lose that box, it really has a lot of those stories that would have been in it. And it really became my box, even though I had lost that first one. And yeah, I found a lot of, I think the satisfaction that sometimes we are missing in that day-to-day grind of like, I have to answer 50 emails and I have to be organized to just have everything work and have it not be stressful. I kind of found that in passing on what my teacher had given, my mentor had given to me to this next teacher, because that's why we became teachers and we're teaching our students. But I think one of the things that doesn't get talked about as much is how much our teachers, the teachers around us, are teaching each other, and that beautiful kind of relationship that we have, that ecosystem between the staff members and the school as well.
Yeah. I want to ask you about a couple of stories, but before we do that, I just want to take a minute to do a shout out to our podcast sponsors, the Empowered Music Educator Academy and Kennelly Keys Music.
As band directors, we know that success is all about preparation, whether it's in the classroom, on the podium, or behind the scenes. That's why the Empowered Music Educator Academy is here to help you master time management, reduce stress, and create sustainable routines that keep both you and your program thriving. And when it comes to ensuring your musicians have access to top quality instruments and services, Kennelly Keys Music is the name to trust. From rentals and repairs to expert advice and outstanding customer service, Kennelly Keys is committed to keeping your program running smoothly. Visit KennellyKeysMusic.com today to explore their offerings and experience the difference of working with a company that truly cares about music education. Now, back to the show.
All right, we are back with Lindsey Williams, and we're talking about her career and the book that she's created, Where the Water... Wait, I just forgot the title. See what I mean about book titles? Where the Valley Widens. The water is wide. See why I get confused. Where the Valley Widens. How did you come up with that title?
Oh, so the place where I work, I work in upstate New York, and a lot of the towns and townships are named after, native words or whatever. And so the meaning of the Haudenosaunee word of our village, it means where the valley widens. And it is like there's, wooded hills flowing and the river runs right through it. And it becomes a metaphor in the book for a place where you kind of become something that you didn't think you could be in the beginning.
Just like those pre-K kids become something different by the time they graduate. Wow. Do you have a couple favorite stories from your book or that you could give us as teasers?
Oh, sure. So there are a couple of funny ones where, I'm a young band director and the students are just, they come in a whirlwind and they leave rehearsal with like pencils broken on the ground and, the drawings made in the margins of their music and, the bell rings and the bus is there and all of a sudden they're gone. And it's just like a whirlwind is left in their wake, and just talking about how crazy that feels until you kind of get your feet underneath you. So there's funny anecdotes from elementary school like that. And then in middle school, as they also, they're very funny. So little things about lunchtime rehearsals, like when we didn't have time in the schedule for a jazz band class. So now we're lucky enough to have a jazz band in our day where I work now. But at the time they had to come from lunch and do it on their lunch or their recess time. And so they're lining up at the drinking fountain to swish the peanut butter and jelly out of their mouths before they play, C jam blues and concert B flat. And, so just funny things like that go through the book. And then also, again, serious moments as we're recovering from the flood or, I'm really learning from my mentor teacher about how to make motions as a conductor that mean something and how to connect with the folks who have done my job for years before me and the people who will come after.
Yeah, you mentioned that kids are funny. The middle schoolers are funny. Being in middle school, I think you could do a whole comedy routine on middle schoolers and their weirdness. But must be, yeah, I have never taught that many years in a row. My most was, I think, 6 or 7 when it was middle through high school. So I imagine that you just watch human beings develop. I imagine that just must be such a phenomenal experience.
Oh, yeah. And I think folks have asked me, like, what's your favorite grade to teach? And, I really don't have an answer for that question, because I really felt that at every grade I was teaching humans, whether they were in 4th grade or 6th grade or they were seniors. Somehow it didn't, if you were really connecting with them, it didn't matter how old they were. And it almost didn't seem like they really were 12 or 14. They were just musicians or people worth connecting with.
It's funny. My next question was going to be, what's your favorite age group to teach? So we'll just skip right over that. So if a music teacher, or somebody picks up your book, what do you think they'll be their takeaway from reading it?
Well, I hope they really feel seen. I hope that everybody who reads it, whether their connection to the schools is as a teacher or a student or a staff member or a parent, I hope there's some character in there that you resonate with and feel like, oh my gosh, yes, I've lived that or the like, because I think sometimes it can be hard as a teacher. It can be a thankless job where you don't feel seen. There's one moment where I'm working with one of my other staff members, and we talk about having a 35-minute prep and all the things you are supposed to do in that prep. I wish I had it tabbed in the book right now, but it's a funny paragraph about all the things, that you're supposed to get done in there. So I guess I'm just really hoping that if you're out there teaching in a small district, because my district is rural, and thankfully I have another band director that teaches alongside me. But for those of you who don't, I hope it feels like you've got somebody in the trenches with you.
It sounds like it would be a wonderful book for a teacher to read, but also maybe a really good gift for somebody who's becoming a teacher or has been a teacher for a while or getting ready to retire. I mean, anywhere there. And you said it with 40 different chapters or 40 short stories. It could be one of those things, even for a teacher, as they sit down to do their morning meditations or evening reflections, just a quick little story to, like they're almost like having a conversation with you, like what's going on or what was something there and the like. So a lot of different ways they could consume the book, like it sounds like too.
Yeah, totally. I wrote 40 chapters so that you could read one each week of a school year. So it doesn't have to be a big commitment. And you could leave whatever year you are teaching, feeling like you want to come back the next one and, that it means something for you.
Well, you had a wise mentor to not say if you have a bad day, but when you do. Yesterday, I read my 8th graders the places you'll go, and it talks about you'll be all great except when you won't, because sometimes you won't. And so that reality check, but then that, hey, we're resilient. We can get through these things. And so you bring hope. You bring that light to people through your book. Tell us, where can we find I will put a link for pre-orders in our podcast notes, or even orders. So whenever anybody's listening to this, is there any other place they can find out more about the book in the meantime, or what they can do?
Oh, sure. So you can pre-order it anywhere that you buy books, like Bookshop, if you want to support your local independent bookstore. Yay. It's also on Amazon. And yeah, I have a website, lindseywilliamsmusic.com, that you can check it out at. And and my socials as well, Lindsey Williams Music at Instagram and Facebook.
Well, cool. I'm really glad that you wrote the book and that you had those stories to tell, and that you didn't let losing a lot of that stuff the first time keep you from doing this, and instead you've turned it into a beautiful thing, not just for your own memories now, but to inspire others. That's like mentoring in another way. You're one-on-one with other people, but what a great legacy to leave. Really cool. Thank you for sharing this. And that's a wrap on this episode of Band Director Boot Camp. Hey, remember, success in music education is not just about what happens on the podium. It's about taking care of yourself and setting up systems that work for you. The Empowered Music Educator Academy is here to help you do just that. So be sure to check out our resources at empowerededucator.com. And of course, we want to yell a huge shout out to Kennelly Keys Music, our platinum sponsor, for their unwavering support of music educators like you. Thanks for listening, and keep making a difference in kids' lives through the magic of music education.
That's a wrap on this episode of the Band Director Bootcamp podcast. Remember, success in music education isn't just about what happens on the podium. It's about taking care of yourself and setting up systems that work for you. The Empowered Music Educator Academy is here to help you do just that. So be sure to check out our resources at empowerededucator.com. And of course, a huge thank you to Kennelly Keys Music, our platinum sponsor, for their unwavering support of music educators like you. Whether you need instruments, accessories, or expert advice, their team is ready to help. Thanks for listening, and keep making music happen.